Welcome to the Thursday edition of Talking Horses. Acacia Colon alongside Sarah L. Bodways. We're getting ready to kick off at this week at Belmont Park, and a lot going on. Sarah, we were together last night as well, covering some Canterbury action, which was a lot of fun, and we'll get to spend a lot of time together today too.
I know, long time no see. I get
know.
to talk to you for Talking Horses as well as the early part of America's Day at the Races, so looking forward to it. We have a lot going on, even though it is kind of that lull before Saratoga.
That's right. Little bit of a more quiet time here. Busy across the pond with Royal Ascot going on, and Lafitte Pinkai and Richie Migliore, I think, just put bunk beds in the corner there and just camped out last night after the Canterbury races.
Under here.
But yeah, Jonathan Thomas, Rangeroux, 3 stakes wins yesterday over at Canterbury, and they just seemed like everybody just has such a good time over there. It was fun covering that card, something different.
Yeah, you'll have to go sometime. It's a racetrack where people really come out. They have a lot of on-track presence, so it seems like they had a good, exciting night of their stakes action.
I want to be there when the ostrich racing takes place. Anyway, we've got a lot of goodies for you at the top here. So we'll take a look at the slates that we do have and what's coming up today. You have your $200 deposit match using promo code BONUS200 over at Naira Bets. Andy Serling's favorite horse, Classic Causeway, featured there. You can check out nairabets.com. Make sure you get your up to $200 deposit match bonus. Get started. We have plenty of good action to be involved with today, including a middle pick 4 that starts in race number 3 today, I believe, at Belmont Park. And speaking of Royal Ascot, you can play along with all the action going on over there with Naira Bets, as always. Royal Ascot on day 3 today. Get a 20% bonus on all winning Royal Ascot wagers. Opt in at nairabets.com. There's always all kinds of great promos going on at Naira Bets. Just make sure you opt in for that. And 20% bonus there. Also 20% bonus if you deposit $100 and bet $100 on Belmont Park. You get $20. What's wrong with that? Definitely a great option to take advantage of. Bleecker Street, the feature for that slate. Belmont Saturday contests are back as well. $300 buy-in, cash and seat prizes. You get access to next week's contest. You have until 5 p.m. on Friday to register. naira.com/contest to take advantage. And finally, America's Day at the Races from 1 to 5:30 on FS2. As Sarah mentioned, it will be the girls up on the desk to kick off the early show. We hope you'll join us and participate with all of the great racing action. We're still on the turf. We're fast and firm. It looks like, knock on wood, I don't know where there's any wood around me, but I'm knocking on it. The rain has missed us as of now, a bit overcast, but the main track onlys have been scratched. So we're fast and firm at the moment as we get ready to dive right in with the first race, Sarah, on the main track, 7 furlongs in a maiden special weight. This is for 3-year-olds and upward, and we'll start with the horse Mount Up, who we both pick. He's 2 to 5 right now, but we'll take a look at his first race, and as far as comparing who he ran against that day, it has held up to scrutiny.
It has, and this is a horse, too. You see him braking a little bit slower than the rest of the field and running with his head up in the air as the track was wet that day. To me, just ran like a horse that needed a start, really reactive to that kickback. But as this race progresses, you can kind of see him figuring things out as he goes along.
He comes back in just his second start. We haven't seen him since this debut in October, but he's been training really sharply up at the Oklahoma training track in Saratoga. And he kind of ran, to me, I agree, as a horse that maybe was definitely a bit green, maybe not 100% fit either. And that's the point where you see him start to kind of kick in. The horse that won that race, Full Moon Madness, came back to be second in the Nashua. So we'll see what he does. He's a $400,000 son of Army Mule, and they certainly can run.
Yes, he's had a lot of early success as a stallion. He's currently winning with 21% for all of his progeny. And you're seeing him really pick things up in the later stages of this race, closing up the inside, ultimately getting second. This is his 3-year-old debut. Of course, you're taking the worst of it at a short price with another horse in here scratching out. So this is a more compact field than it already was. But of the horses that have experience, of which there's only 2, I preferred him. I know you did as well.
The other one with experience is the 2 Treaty Obligation, who will cut back a little bit from the mile. So he has the recency. Obviously, fitness not going to be a concern with him, just having run 3rd going the mile in April.
Right. With him, I feel as though we're kind of seeing what he's made of already.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to look to someone with a little bit more upside. We have a couple of first-time starters in here as well. I think we kind of are starting to realize who he is, and it might not be quite good enough to contend.
Speaking of first-time starters, of the firsters, you prefer the 6 Colville. Obviously, the huge pedigree being out of Catherine Sophia. My question with this one is that the half-sister Mezcal, who's a Bobby Flay filly that Todd Pletcher trained, she wanted to run forever and on the turf.
Yes.
So I wonder what we're going to see from this one.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a question with him. I just ultimately ended up preferring him over the other first-time starters. We know how good Chad Brown is first time out, and some of the others did not have the stats to back it up, shall we say, going first time out.
Yeah, big night out. Has a good pedigree, but on the bottom side, it's certainly leaning towards a little bit more distance. A fun way to kick it off. We're on the turf for race number 2, going a mile in this allowance for 3-year-olds and upward. And I think the conversation really starts around a couple of the horses who are kind of last out types. That should be 5, 4, 1, 3 for me, guys, after the scratches, please. 5, 4, 1, 3. But we'll talk a little bit first about the number 4, Chasing the Crown, who you have, who did win last time out at Churchill.
He did, and this is a horse that we have a race to show for him where he was actually 3rd at Gulfstream, and that was his first start of the season. He was a part of a pace that ends up falling apart in the later stages of this race. You see him currently on the lead, and to his outside, you see a horse Up to the Mark, who is now a dual Grade 1 winner since this race. So you can tell he's been keeping good company. I just like that he was able to maintain his position, attack a pace that ended up coming apart, and still run on pretty well for 3rd. Certainly has the pedigree to improve and be a little bit better than what we've seen from him so far, as he is the foal to Vasilika.
And like you said, obviously ran against a really good one with Up to the Mark, who we saw winning the Manhattan here for Todd Pletcher. I have a theory with Easter. And this is a horse who his only win has come to mile. I just really think that he's been running too far. So we get to see him back at the mile today. And I've just been every single time in my notes writing, I would love to see him go a mile, would love a little bit less distance. Last time out, too, he got a little bit keen. He was facing good horses and the likes of Never Explain and Emmanuel, who came back to win impressively and just kind of flattened. It's put up or shut up for him today, but I just really feel like this is the distance that I've been wanting to see him at again.
And you don't have the Good Friday hunch for him either, as he's run
know,
twice on Good Friday.
That's right. I forgot about that. So we'll see how he handles it. He was a miler over in Europe as well. The number 3, Duke of Hazzard, he's got to get out of the gate better.
He does, and he had a pretty wide trip last time out, making his first start of the season. Ended up closing pretty well over the center of the track over at Keeneland, but he's one that he needs to start better, and he also needs to be a little bit more forwardly placed if he's going to be competitive today in a shorter field that might lack some of that early speed.
And I think we have the replay for Duke of Hazzard as well. As last time, he was kind of antsy in the gate as well, and he kind of broke okay, but then took himself out of the race as well. It just seems like maybe mentally he's not the easiest to keep focused, and he was wide, just kind of ran out of time. We'll see if he can get himself involved a little bit sooner.
Yeah, that's the concern with him, and as well as those gate issues that you mentioned. And another concern for me is just that he's going to have softer fractions to run into. The pace held together pretty well for this race, with the pace setter Fancy Liquor ultimately running 2nd, and he was facing a good horse in Hurricane Dream as well. Yeah. So we'll see what we get from him.
What do you do with Verbal, the number 1? We both have him 3rd. He's obviously a horse that they had some high hopes for. He won a Grade 3 in just his 2nd start. I saw him at Tampa 2 back, and I loved what I saw from him in all the preliminaries. He just kind of ran in place, and he did the same last time out too. He's 8 to 5 on the morning line.
Hasn't he just been a little bit disappointing? I don't know if he ends up going off as the favorite, but with the way Irad Ortiz Jr. is bet around here, we'll see what happens. And it's Chad Brown as well, but I just preferred some others.
Moving on to race number 3, a mile on the main track, $12,500 claiming race for fillies and mares, as the number 4 and the number 3, Gringotts and Valorant, will rematch out of a race back in May. And they both look like they have big chances to be effective in here.
Yeah, I preferred Gringotts out of that effort, as we'll take a look at the start of this race for those two. And both of them are getting into a level of competition where they've been competitive in the past. And she's the number 3. She's being taken off the pace a little bit after a slight stumble, whereas Valorant's going to be sitting a little bit closer ultimately. And with her, she just had a little bit of a trip where she's far back early. She ends up having to steady in a little bit out of traffic, still making a wide move later on. horses that were in a better position than her ran 1-2 in this race. I forgive not being competitive. Last out as much, went in for the $20,000 tag. She's dropping back to a more realistic spot. You see right there, her having to steady out and still coming with a run.
The Valorant, who was the number 7 that day, she was up top kind of pressing the pace. And she, Maddie Olver, who'll be in town to ride her again today too, she kind of did the right move with taking over as the long shot co-pace setter was fading. That said, she had to kind of make that first move, and you could see her getting a little leg weary as she started to drift out a little bit late in the stretch.
Exactly, and I don't know if she ends up being the pace setter today because we have another horse in Greatest Love that has speed to her outside as well, who might be a little bit more aggressively ridden to make that lead. Now returning to Linda Rice with Jose Lascano back aboard, who's ridden her more aggressively in the past, says we'll take a look at the top of the stretch for this race where Gringotts has made more of a move and Valorand is kind of fading a little bit as that pace setter, but still staying on pretty well. Where did you end up going in here?
Well, I think the Greatest Love is going to be the one to beat. And we can go right to Greatest Love's replay as soon as we're done with the stretch of this. As you see, there was no catching the winner, Gypsy Janie, that day, who would come back to win again and is in great form. So not much separating Valorant and Gringotts as they'll rematch, have faced each other the last couple times. So they're well familiar with one another. But as far as Greatest Love is concerned, we could take a look at her. This is one that I think is interesting because it's a move we talk about often with Linda Rice when she dips back in for a horse. And she's actually had this horse twice before. So this is her 3rd time claiming this mare. And for a barn that does so well off the claim, is obviously quite sharp about claiming horses and seeing how they fit in conditions. That said, she claimed her back in April, and we don't see her until June 22nd. Nearly 2 months to the day. So that's a little bit of my question, but I just feel like she's coming in with some solid efforts.
And she's the outside speed in this race as well. And that was a race that I had actually talked about where Greatest Love was getting a jockey change. Icy Reply was as well.
Right.
I thought that Icy Reply might be a little bit more closer to the pace, a little bit more aggressively handled. Greatest Love ended up stalking just slightly off the pace. That ended up making a difference for those two. So we'll see what we get from Greatest Love today with Jose Lascano back aboard. I just imagine she's going to go.
We'll see how it plays out. We're back on the turf for the 4th race, 6 furlongs on the inner starter allowance for fillies and mares. And we agree a lot today, Sarah. And we were kind of joking about it. It seems like oftentimes when we really agreed, it was trying to find the next logical horse in the race if you're trying to get a little bit more of a price. And I thought, as clearly you did as well, that Bustin' Bullet could be that. What did you like about her?
I just thought that she was going to be a better price than your favorite, as well as the number 3 Bella Principessa, who ended up scratching in here because Ira Ortiz Jr. was slated to ride that one.
She would have been a very short price. And
exactly.
That was what I was keen to try and beat.
Right. I'm totally with you here. And so for me with her, she was close to the pace, but she was kind of taken back a little bit, ended up having to delay her run in that race, being a little bit behind horses as the pace setter of that race backed up. So she got started a little bit later, whereas her competitor in there that's no longer playing today got more of a clear run on the outside. I don't know what to do with these races because Solib returned and regressed a little bit. This was a day where the turf was very, very firm. Those aren't the conditions we're getting today. Totally the same because we have had a little bit of rain. Another horse that won that day was Regal Realm, who we saw come back and win last night at Canterbury. Her getting all of this very firm turf for all of her starts. So I don't totally know how to evaluate that race, but I don't fully trust Active Congress either.
That's fair. And as far as Bustin' Bullet, I think cutting back from the 7 to the 6 furlongs will help her too. And I think what you said about having to delay her run was key because she doesn't have much of a run for a turf sprinter. You know, she doesn't kind of have that quick turn of foot. You have to really time things right and make sure to get her there when she can kind of put it all together. As far as Active Congress is concerned, she wired the field last time out at Pimlico off of a layoff and beat Gift of Gab, who came back with a 73 Beyer speed figure, and she did improve her Beyer quite a bit as well in her subsequent start. Do you think she's alone on the front today?
It's completely possible, but I have to imagine that Lola Flo, who set the pace in that race that Bustin' Bullet's coming out, is going to at least try to show some early speed like she did last time. Maybe not because it didn't work out for her. They might try something new since that wasn't a successful move, but With Act of Congress, do you trust that she's going to run back to that 80
Yeah.
buyer? It was so different than what we'd seen from her early.
It was a totally different horse. Prior to that, the best she had run was on her debut, which was a 62. And like I said, the second place finisher, I think, validated it a little bit. But that said, she's got to do it again. And she is stepping up from the non-winners of 2 level to face some deeper company today. I was intrigued by a couple of other horses who scratched in here, unfortunately. So
Same.
you've got Linda Rice with 2. Boss of All is a last out winner. And then Brisky Frolic off the claim.
Yeah, with Brisky Frolic, it's kind of a question of can she compete at this level as well? But Linda Rice does so well first off the claim. However, when you're looking at only her turf starters, not quite as much in terms of those monster statistics.
Yeah.
So I like some of the horses that scratch just like you did. We kind of end up with some other logical options underneath.
We have a fun race in race number 5, 2-year-olds sprinting on the turf, and they are all first-time starters. It was a nightmare for me to try and make picks without having seen these horses, so I was really stressed about doing selections, but looking forward to seeing them. Richie Migliore will actually be in the paddock for this race a little bit later on, but we'll start with a horse, Sarah, that neither of us picked, because I know you have a video for Weekend Concerto. Mike Maker has been really sharp with his 2-year-olds coming from the 2-year-old sales so far. I'm curious your thoughts. I wasn't crazy about this workout. He went 10-2, and he's absolutely a turf horse, but I would have liked to see him lower his head a little bit more and reach out. It wasn't really asked for much, and his stride didn't really extend as much as I would have liked to see.
No, we didn't see a move made with him. He was kind of just running evenly throughout. And while Mike Maker does have some really great stats overall, he's not the best with 2-year-old first-time starting turf sprinters. He's actually only 6 for 62, so he's 9% with a $1.06 ROIs, and these horses get bet.
Right.
So that's kind of the concern I had with him, as well as not being super visually impressed.
Did have the Wine Steward, who had just really an okay work at the OBS 2-year-old sale as well, and did win on debut a couple weeks ago in the dirt. So we'll see what Weekend Concerto can do. We both go to the 5 Culprit, who's one of 2 for Wesley Ward. I liked that this one has had the opportunity to be training on the turf up at Saratoga and has been doing so quickly. Curious to see how he will handle it. As far as the siblings, neither of them have won as of yet. One ran on dirt, one ran on synthetic. So we'll see. This one, I just kind of went off the workouts.
And I like you, that he's had the opportunity to get those Saratoga works, and they've been fast. He comes in with the last one being a bullet drill 48 flat over at Saratoga. Even if this wasn't your typical Wesley Ward firster showing speed as we'd expect, coming in with a workout like that, I think speaks a lot. And Justify's doing well with his 2-year-old first-time starters. He's firing at 23%.
And I like them on the turf as well. Wesley has 2 in here. Also Dark Vintage, who was purchased for about $384,000 over at the Tattersalls October sale by very proficient sire Dark Angel. Meanwhile, though, George Weaver just can't be stopped. Won over at Royal Ascot yesterday as well in the Queen Mary, and he has 2 2-year-olds in here. I go to one, you take the other in second. Tell me about Noble Wave.
There's a little pedigree on the dam side for this one. Female family of Anguilla was a multiple graded stakes winner on the grass. The barn is not hot only here. They're hot at Royal Ascot, just like you mentioned. So Weaver's having a ton of success in general. And while this isn't the hottest first time out 2-year-old sire in Noble Mission, when Manny Franco rides first-time starters for George Weaver, they're 5 for 32 together, but they connect with big prices. They're actually sporting a $3.92 ROI over the past 5 years. Manny Franco actually getting on Bacoma for his debut run, which I thought was interesting. Right. So I just went to this one thinking he'd be the better-priced Weaver.
On the bottom side of the 7, Please Advise, there's a big turf pedigree. That was the one that I took. I think as far as the pedigree, it suggests longer on the turf. And do know Eric can sell off his mounts again today. Jose Lascano will be aboard. Please Advise. We hope to see Eric back soon. Randy Hill also can't be stopped. He was part of that Ascot winner as well. He had 4 wins as an owner the other day at Belmont, involved with a couple of different horses. But this call is off to Siem Reap, who was a 6-time turf winner. 8 out of the 9 foals were winners, 5 of them on turf. So there's plenty of grass pedigree. 1 workout on the turf up at Saratoga. So definitely intriguing to see which of the Weaver ones take money as well, and which of them are just kind of ready to roll at first asking.
Absolutely. And really, it's kind of going to be a wide open board, because you also have Ira Ortiz Jr. not even getting on any of the Wesley Wards. He's riding for Todd Pletcher instead.
Right. Riding for Todd Pletcher with a $200,000 son of Cairo Prince. Obviously, Cairo's proficient on the grass. There's not much turf pedigree in the bottom side. The dam actually is sister to Mark Valesky.
Yeah, there's a lot of dirt pedigree going on here, but sometimes with Todd Pletcher, there's a lot of dirt influence, and he's able to get them to run proficiently on the turf.
Yeah, when some of those big barns put horses on the surface that they don't necessarily look to be bred for, I've learned the hard way. You just trust them. Mayor
Yes.
Jack is a huge price, but I did want to mention this one. 10-3 workout, only sold for 40,000 as a 2-year-old, but just really, really moved like a turf horse to my eye. And Melanie Giddings had her first win as a trainer at Presque Isle the other day, so big congratulations to her. And she had a 2-year-old the other day that ran really well to finish in the money. So maybe at a big price, you throw this one underneath.
You'll definitely get your price. on
Yeah,
this
you
one.
will.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. Looking forward to those 2-year-olds a little bit later on. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with the late pick 4 after this on Talking Horse.
Born in the foothills of the Adirondacks over 150 years ago, the Saratoga brand has become synonymous with quality. Carefully crafted spring water. Each stunning blue glass bottle is created with the same attention to detail and care that has been the Saratoga hallmark for generations. So open a bottle, take a sip, and savor the Saratoga experience. Saratoga, an American classic that's always in good taste. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses, presented by Saratoga Water, Acacia and Sarah. I nearly call it an America's Day at the Races, going to break there. So I got to remember what show I'm on, Sarah, as we have race 6 coming up next. 6 furlongs on the main track. And this one, significant scratch with Colonel Bowman coming out. That definitely changes how the race will be bet, too, I think.
For sure. And I think we both had an angle to try to get past this one. And now you're taking a shorter price on everybody else that you might try to use to get around this horse who is riding a very significant win streak. And this is a pretty big scratch coming in, but this is a compact field, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, you really could make a case for every single runner in the field. Let's start with Nova Rags, who had this last out winner back on April 28th. This was a horse who at one point was kind of on the Kentucky Derby trail. Cutting him back to sprinting was the best thing that ever happened to him, despite being by Union Rags. Sees to Get Degrees is in this race as well. He came back with a big victory after this.
And while Nova Rags isn't necessarily the most winningest type of horse, I completely agree with you said about him getting to do what he wants to do now as a 5-year-old. He is that closing sprinter type. I think there will be some pace in here for him to run into if everything plays out according to how it at least appears on paper to me. And while he did get a co-career best 95 buyer for this effort, I just feel as though this race might play out similarly to that, even though he isn't necessarily the horse that always finds his way to the winner's circle.
One who's also in good form is the 2 Secret Rules. Got the win last time out on a wet track. Your top pick here.
Yeah, this one is just one that I thought would be close to the pace without necessarily needing the lead. He's really lucked out as an MTO in his past 2 races. He might get a wetter track by that time later on today, depending on what happens with the weather. So he's able to show that he's able to handle it. And I just thought that he'd be forwardly placed. But what do you do with Mr. Phils? Is he going to go? Do you really trust that kind of race that he was able to produce earlier on in his career? I have more questions with him than some of the other runners.
Yeah, Mr. Phil definitely has more questions than answers. He's obviously the class, and given who he's been facing recently, comes out of a try in the grade 3 run happy. I've always felt that 7 furlongs is really his best distance and when he's forward. And last time out, and I know it was in graded stakes company, it's just he was not forward where he usually needs to be. There is other pace in here with the presence of Seas Get Degrees. We know he's going to the front and he's going to try to take him every step. You can, with the entry, you've got Seas Get Degrees as well as Gunnet, who gets back to the dirt. And Gunnet had recently developed this bad habit, and he's obviously kept it when Linda Rice claimed him, that he's either reluctant or completely reticent to switch leads, or he starts lugging in really significantly to kind of swap over. And I don't know where that came from because he didn't used to do it at the beginning of his career.
No, but it's something he's also kept throughout his career. He doesn't love to win,
No, he
unfortunately.
doesn't, no.
He always runs a good competitive race, but finding the wire for him is also a little bit of a challenge. So he's another one that a lot of them, if they run their best race, they'll win. Who are we going to see it from?
Yeah, we'll see who gets the victory there in the 6th race, turning our attention to race 7. The New York bred allowance race, 6 furlongs on the main track. And taking a look at our top selection, the number 3, Thrill of It, kind of what I was touching on earlier, trying to go against the favorite, a logical other horse. I thought he was very interesting coming out of a 4th place finish last time out and could get a good trip today.
And this is a jockey that won with him 2 back. He had a small bump at the break in that start last time out where he was facing some fellow competitors that he'll be facing again today, as many of them do exit the same race, which we can show for Unique Unions and Foolish Ghost coming out of that April 30th start. And this is a horse that I just felt as though he didn't seem in love with the kickback. It depends on what kind of surface he gets today, but he moved in and skipping over some serious puddles in that race too. And we're not going to see that kind of a racetrack today.
Right. You can see how wet it was back on April 30th. And Unique Unions finishing second to Brew Pub in here, Foolish Ghost in third. And those are horses who have actually run pretty well, particularly Foolish Ghost on a wet track. And I agree. I don't think Thrill of It really loved that. And he was also kind of down on the inside that day too. And that's a horse, Thrill of It, who I agree should appreciate a drier track. And even if it does rain today, it's not going to be pouring like that. What do you do with Defusky Island, who's been on a roll recently and could potentially be stakes bound and good claim for Rudy Rodriguez?
Yeah, I mean, he's just been improving lately, really in great form right now. I took him second. I'm a little nervous about him. I think this might be a tougher field than he's been facing in the past, so he'll have to prove it against some really battle-hardened horses that we see all the time on this circuit. But you can't deny that he's just been really impressive lately, and we have his race last time out to show as well. And he can also be a little bit more forward, too. I know Foolish Ghost, a major pace presence in this race, though.
Yeah, I remember last time I tried to go against him because it looked on paper like there could be quite a bit of speed, and it didn't even matter. He was just so dominant in this effort. He was flattered when Ocean's Reserve, who was really not a winning type, came back to win, and Leah Giamatti having a very good week with a couple of winners last week, and Ocean's Reserve one of those. But Defusky Island, who won with that significant drop in class 2 starts back, backed it up really with this big effort. He certainly belongs here. The question is, can he do it again, as going from the 1 other than to the 2 other than level? It's a step up in competition.
Right, and you don't necessarily want to take these horses at a shorter price when they're making those moves in class and going through their conditions, but you just really can't deny the kind of form he's been in lately.
We move on to race 8, a mile and a 16th on the inner turf for fillies at the 3-year-olds, and this is a allowance race. And taking a look at the number 6, Quarrel, who we both have. This filly ran in Graded Stakes Company last time out, and she actually ran okay at a big price, and she just wants to go longer.
I agree, and she just never seemed to have a comfortable trip. You see her stumbling a little bit out of the gate, being taken into last at this moment. These are better horses that she's facing. She now gets to stretch out just a little bit more in distance, and now she's in between horses and she's pulling, and I just thought she never really looked settled for the entire running of that race.
And the race was also dominated on the front end, too. American Apple and Queen Picasso ran 2-1 throughout the running of the race. Queen Picasso kind of the similar trip that she got in her maiden score. And Quarrel, as you see, in between horses late, you talked about her not being comfortable. Her head's kind of turned a little bit. She doesn't look like she really wants to go up between. And I just think getting a little bit more distance, she'll have an opportunity to get into stride. She's also the type of filly, and I wasn't in the paddock for the Soaring Softly, but I remember her as a 2-year-old. She needed to kind of race into fitness as well. And so I think having that race under her belt will definitely help her as she gets back to what she wants, and she now has the fitness standpoint. Hopefully gets a little bit of a smoother trip today. The number 8 to the outside, Big Brass Bed. You have to say this slowly. Big win last time out at Monmouth.
Yeah, I mean, she makes some sense, and she seems the more likely of the Chad Brown runners, even though Ira Ortiz Jr. opts for the other one, and she can certainly win as she comes in from Monmouth. But I, like you, just kind of wanted to take another shot against a favorite. We have that common theme going today. We might end up being in trouble with all of our agreement throughout the card.
Have a great day or a terrible day.
Yes. She probably stalks from the outside, just looking for somebody a little bit more interesting in terms of price.
Yeah, the other Chad Brown runner, Root Cause. I'd be curious if something happens and we do get rain. I was wondering if it came off, if he would keep her in, because she is the half-sister to Vertical Oak, who's a multiple graded stakes winner sprinting on the dirt. And this one has been going along on turf, and she's been such a short price in her last couple of races, and I am just very curious to see what she does. Here's another example of a top horseman running a horse on a surface that maybe it doesn't necessarily look like she's bred for.
And if this race came off the turf, I actually picked her in second because I had a lot more interest in her getting over to dirt with that pedigree that you mentioned. I don't like the regression from a 77 to a 57 buyer last time out at Churchill following her maiden win. I know that they tried different tactics. They kept her a little bit closer to the pace. That didn't work out for her. But if she's coming from further off the pace today, I don't know if that's going to work out for her either.
Life, Love, and Laughter. I thought she was a little bit intriguing. The blinkers going on. She had a wide trip last time. And if she steps forward from her 2-year-old form, she could be a bit interesting in here.
Yeah, I thought that there would be more aggressive intentions with her today, too. She did face older last time out. There is some interesting 2-year-old form, as you mentioned. She was stakes face, so certainly could move forward.
One more to go. Race 9, a mile and a 16th on the turf for the nightcap $35,000 claiming race for 3-year-olds and upward. Yet again, both of us trying to go against the logical favorites with KP All Systems Go. I thought Sarah, her last race at this level was very good behind inflation adjusted, who would come back to win and be in great form. The drop for me was the key.
There's just some better races than what we saw last time out for this horse. This horse is second off a layoff as well. I like that drop in class, just like you mentioned. That inflation-adjusted race makes him very competitive in here. And I just do not trust a horse like Hilliard. I don't trust Splendid Summer. I just went to the next logical alternative to those two.
Yeah, we'll take a look at our old friend Hilliard, who tried some hurdles. He tried the synthetic last time out. He's back here to New York, a place that he's well familiar with. This is June of last year, his last win, right? And we'll see if he can get back to it. I do wonder if it's just kind of a little bit of a give up with the drop coming back here to Mike Maker.
I guess. I mean, it certainly can win. Mike Maker knows how to spot his horse as well. You have I Rider T's Jr. riding. This race makes him a winner.
Yeah.
Where is it? He's tried so many different things.
Right. Yeah, clearly going over the jumps was not meant for him. And I think it's fun that Jordan Wyckoff has gotten so much more into jumps racing now as well.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Cross-border try the same. So we'll see what he does. But as far as Splendid Summer, neither of us picked him. I know you have his last race. He did win. The problem with claiming a horse off of Todd Pletcher, and especially claiming one off a win, is that then you have to step them up to the next condition, and you have to step them up to tougher company.
Right. And is this not one of the most perfect trips of trips of all time? Able to just completely walk on the front end on the grass. And he had never really shown this kind of speed in the past. This was a great ride to be aggressive with him like that, take control of the race. And we so often see jockeys not want to do so on our grass races, but this is a tougher field. I don't trust a horse coming out of the Todd Pletcher barn, and I don't trust that he's necessarily going to get a trip like this again.
Tom Morley has Sonic Speed. He's second off the layoff, and I just thought his route races were better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. And another one to mention, the number 11 Ario, he's likely the speed in
especially
here.
with the scratch.
Yes,
he looks like
a
he
very
could
key
potentially
scratch.
control. Yep. Well, that's it. That's the 9 races on today's Thursday card. Well done, Sarah. I'll see you in a few minutes for America's Day at the Races. Yeah. We'll take a look at all those slates we have as well. I want to remind everybody you can play along with everything on Naira Bets. Hopefully, Sarah and I agreeing so much today. We have a great day, and so do you. And you can get up to a $200 deposit match bonus using promo code BONUS200. Check out NairaBets.com for details. Plenty of action to participate in today, including a middle pick 4, which kicks off in race 3 today. If you want to bet what's going on over at Royal Ascot across the pond, you can do so with Naira Bets and get a 20% bonus. In the meantime, make sure you opt in at NairaBets.com. 20% bonus on all your winning Royal Ascot wagers. And if you're playing Belmont Park, which we certainly hope you are, Naira Bets has you covered there as well. Deposit $100, bet $100 on Belmont Park, and you get 20 back. They're going to give you free money. You can't argue with that. NairaBets.com to opt in. Belmont Saturday contests are back. You have until 5 p.m. on Friday to register. $300 buy-in, cash and seat prizes on the line. And finally, America's Day at the Races from 1 to 5:30 today on FS2. Sarah and I will kick things off with Richard Migliori reporting. Hope you'll join us on this Thursday afternoon. And hopefully hopefully the weather holds out for us.
I know. And you're going over to Royal Ascot soon as well, right?
I am flying tonight. I've got a
Exciting.
long day ahead. Luckily,
Yeah.
it's a overnight flight, so I'll
Okay.
be exhausted after the day, and I'll sleep and
on the
arrive
plane. There you
and
go.
go to the races tomorrow. So
Exciting
look forward
stuff.
to it.
Awesome.
Yeah, well done.
See you
John and
soon.
Brielle standing by with a reprise of Scratches and Changes. Thanks for joining us on Talking Horses.
Born in the foothills of the Adirondacks over 150 years ago, the Saratoga brand has become synonymous with quality, carefully crafted spring water. Each stunning blue glass bottle is created with the same attention to detail and care that has been the Saratoga hallmark for generations. So open a bottle, take a sip, and savor the Saratoga experience. Saratoga, an American classic that's always in good taste. Make every day exquisite.